Is New Trek dead? And is there a dawn of a new Trek? But what would that mean for Strange New Worlds and Academy? Welcome to SciTrek, your sci-fi TV and movie channel. If you are a regular SciTrek, you'll know that I've been talking to you for the last few months that there's been lots of rumours bouncing around that the relationship between Alex Kurtzman's Secret Hideout and elements of Paramount is not great. That there are big voices in Paramount saying that actually a lot of the new Trek we've seen over the last few years has not really been good enough, and that they really want to take it in a different direction. And that Picard Season 3 has really just underlined the fact that Star Trek is still incredibly popular and a really loved franchise. But it needs to go in the direction similar to Picard Season 3 to tap into that love. And what is that direction? A slightly more, let's say, traditional Star Trek. Now, I have one source that I speak to a lot, he won't mind me mentioning it, that he hates Alex Kurtzman. Any news information he hears, anything he hears, he does put a very negative anti-Kurtzman spin on it. He can't help it. He hates all of the new Trek. Now, he's been telling me for a long time that they're going to go back to 2005 reset, that they're going to pretend that all of this new Trek just didn't happen. And they're going to go back to the 2005 end of Voyager and completely reset the franchise. Now, I keep telling him that's not going to happen. It's a pipe dream. It really is just the fantasy of somebody that desperately wants that to happen. But just because we want it doesn't mean it makes sense. Now, I've also argued with him that actually the reset that he wants has already been happening. Picard Season 1 started very much sort of in the vein of how the early Discovery started. That actually a lot of what happened in the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies was bleeding into Star Trek Picard. The whole thing with the Romulans and the Romulan refugees, etc. This was a throwback from the J.J. Abrams movies, remembering that Alex Kurtzman wrote a couple of those movies. But that whole J.J. Abrams Trek, it isn't Star Trek. They're good films. I enjoyed them, but they're not Star Trek. For them to come out of the Kelvin timeline and bleed into the Prime timeline was not popular with fans. And also, it just didn't really make sense. It was also very dark and very, I don't know, quite negative in feeling in the early seasons of Picard and in the early seasons of Discovery. What they call drama, I called quite negative and even a little boring. But Picard Season 3, you can't say that. It is more like the Star Trek we're used to. It's a little bit more lighthearted. It's a little bit more positive. And even though there's still drama and there's still action and everything else, it just has a tone that is far more familiar to Trekkies. Even like in the ship designs, etc., they changed throughout the 3 seasons of Picard to become something more like what we're used to. In Discovery, now, I'm not a big fan of Discovery. I actually haven't even seen season 4. I just stopped watching it. And for me, as I am a Trekkie, to not watch a Star Trek episode is just strange. I can't quite get my head around it. And even though Discovery is now coming to an end, I have to say the big bits of the first 2 seasons of Star Trek Discovery were very much influenced by the J.J. Abrams Kelvin timeline. The look of the Klingons is the most obvious impact, but actually in a lot of the storylines, etc. as well. And I never liked it. But even through Discovery, you can see the changes that the show dramatically changed over its first 4 seasons. And I think that change will continue as we see a more Star Trek coming through. The reset that my dear friend, who we talk a lot, argue quite a lot, really wants, I've been arguing, has already happened. But instead of a sudden reset, something that would confuse fans and that would have to be explained in some way, we're seeing a more steady reset. They're picking up the bits from the previous episodes that maybe they didn't like and they're just sort of forgetting about them. But mainly, we're seeing a change in tone to the seasons. I think the popularity of Lower Decks really prove that for Paramount. I think the popularity of Strange New Worlds, even though we're going to discuss that in a minute, also has underlined that fact. But Picard season 3 seriously underlined it. Now, we're getting stories at the moment about Star Trek Phase 2. And what does that mean, though? It basically is exactly what it says. We're moving into a new phase of Star Trek. Alex Kurtzman seems to be quite excited about this. But really, this is a Phase 2 that's been kind of forced on him a little bit. For one, we're not going to see as many Star Trek series actually running together as we have done. They cost too much money. But we will start seeing these movie events, apparently, according to Hollywood Reporter. Now, these movie events, doing something every 2 years, which is a big straight to Paramount Plus movie, I think is a very exciting idea. And obviously, that's kicking off with Section 31. I do get to speak to a couple of people that are quite close to Paramount on this, and they've been whispering again. Now, a couple of months ago, I told you that there was a marketing meeting. Now, this marketing meeting was asking for this company to look at everything Star Trek. And they were putting numbers in cost to benefit ratio. Basically, how much does the show cost? How much does it benefit Paramount Plus? During that meeting, the executives that were there started chatting to the people from the company that had done the research, and they started asking about Terry Matalis and specifically Picard Season 3. Now, when they were commissioned to do the work, Picard Season 3 hadn't come out, so it wasn't part of the research they'd done, but they were asked their opinion. And in those opinions, they basically said, look, we've already seen the numbers increasing for Picard Season 3, even though it's not part of the research, we've been looking at it. There is definitely a different tone, etc., and people seem to be responding to that. They're responding to the legacy characters, yes, but they're also responding to the change in the way the show is being written and produced and presented to them. Paramount have now followed up with that, and they have sent out research questionnaires to a lot of its audience. And I've been able, thanks to again another subscriber, to get hold of one of those questionnaires. Now, it really does focus on Strange New Worlds. There's the first question is below are some reasons why people didn't enjoy Strange New Worlds. Tell us which ones are most important to you. And it's things like I found it boring. I didn't think it was child appropriate. It was too slow. There was too many characters to keep track of. It was not as good as Star Trek Discovery. It was much better than Star Trek Discovery. Too politically correct. And so on and so on. Discovery was just as sort of woke and politically correct as Strange New Worlds was. One of the other questions is overall, how do you see that these shows fit into the overall franchise of Star Trek? And then it's got a slidey thing. So Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks, it does not fit with the franchise at all, or fits perfectly with the franchise. Discovery, Picard, and Prodigy are all on that list. So again, that's looking at as a whole, the franchise. Do these shows, New Trek, fit in with them? Many of them don't. Another of the questions is how do they compare to the original Star Trek series? Again. And then it has a survey of what type of shows do you like to watch? So, romance, comedies, blah, blah, blah. This really does line up with everything that we've been saying and everything I've been told by the couple of people that I speak to for quite some time, that Star Trek has been moving back towards original Trek, that shows like Voyager, Deep Space Nine, The Next Generation, they're moving away from the J.J. Abrams Kelvin Line Trek. And I think as Trekkies, we have to celebrate and we are reaping the rewards. But what does this mean for the future of Star Trek? Well, as I said earlier, it genuinely means that Academy will feel a lot more like, in tone and the way it's put together, the Trek we're used to. I am certain it'll have a more positive attitude and a bit more fun, like Strange New Worlds has. But what does it mean for Strange New Worlds, seeing that this questionnaire seems to focus a lot on... Paramount seems to be asking, should we be moving forward to Strange New Worlds or not? And they seem to be trying to get evidence on whether they should or not. Now, I do have a rumor related to Strange New Worlds that actually it may not go beyond season 3. Now, this is coming from somebody that does actually work reasonably close to the source. He says no decision has definitely been made, but Paramount executives are 100% looking at Strange New Worlds and asking, does it fit with the phase 2 plan that we have? Does it fit with what we want to do long term? And more importantly, we only want 1 or 2 live action seasons running at once. So what should those live action seasons be? Should it be Academy and Strange New Worlds? Or should it be Academy and Star Trek Legacy? I'm going to talk more about Star Trek Legacy in another episode, but it is really interesting that they're looking very hard at Strange New Worlds and that the 3rd season might be its last, because then Star Trek Legacy could appear on our screens. Guys, get into the comments and tell me what you think about that idea. Do you think that actually Star Trek Legacy deserves a shot, but is there space for it in the current market, considering that Paramount has to cut its costs? This is not about what we want, it's about what you think is possible. I'd also love for you guys to tell me exactly what you think in this change of direction. Have you noticed it over the last couple of years with Star Trek? Do you think they are moving in that direction? And does this questionnaire really just reinforce that fact? Please get into the comments and tell me exactly what you're thinking. If you are new to the channel, please like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. It really helps out and you'll never miss any of our new videos. Also, you can go to patreon.com/SciTrek, where most of our new videos appear first and you can watch them without the adverts. As always, please stay safe and I'll see you next time.